Welcome back! This is video number 7 in a series where we talk through our complete process for creating Ultimate Frisbee highlight videos. Remember, there's links in the description to all the other videos in this course if you want to go back and watch any of them. This is the second video in this course where we'll be talking about the editing process. In the last video we talked about some of the broader concepts, and in this video we'll be talking about nitty-gritty stuff where we actually cut some clips together to make a video. I've said it before and I'll say it again, these are just my thoughts when it comes to editing, and a lot of the time there is no right or wrong way to do these things. So don't feel like you have to do things exactly the way that I do. Experiment and find things that work for you. Before we get into things, I want to mention that this video is not going to be specific to any one editing software. I'm not going to be making any tutorials for specific things because there are plenty of great tutorials online for all major editing suites, so if you're new to a particular software and looking for guidance, this is not the video for you. In this video, I'll be focusing specifically on editing Ultimate Frisbee highlight videos. If that's what you're here for, let's get into it. Before we can start editing clips together, we need to do some grunt work. In video 5 of this series, we talked about how we film to capture highlights, which unfortunately means filming everything that happens so that we can be sure we're filming when the highlights happen. Unfortunately, that means that after we're finished filming, we have a mountain of footage that we need to look through and extract the highlights from before we can start editing. In the second video of this series, I talked about this thing here, which can make this process a lot quicker. This is our highlight clicker, which has buttons that we press when a highlight occurs. This clicker marks the footage so that it can be automatically extracted later, which saves a lot of time. Check out the link in the description to the additional resources for this course where there's more information on this guy. If you don't have any way of extracting highlights, that means you need to go through all your footage manually to find the highlights. At the same time, you'll probably also want to sort the highlight clips in some way to make the editing process easier. There are lots of different ways you can do this, and I will talk through what we do. You are welcome to experiment and find the process that works for you. Firstly, we need to find all of the highlights. This, unfortunately, means watching through all of your footage. The good news is that we can speed up this process by fast forwarding through the footage. You can generally watch footage at least 2 times or 4 times speed, and that is still enough to keep track of what's going on to find the highlights. If you can, there's no reason why you can't even go faster still. This gets really boring, and I try and get through it as quickly as I can. When you do find a highlight, you'll need to cut it out of the base footage. There are 2 ways you can do this, either destructively or non-destructively. Doing this destructively means extracting the footage of the highlight and deleting the rest of the footage. This is a good way of quickly freeing up storage space if you need to, but it does have some drawbacks. Once you delete the footage, you can't get it back, so if you get into the edit and you want to include the celebration after the highlight, for example, but you clipped out and deleted it, that's too bad. You can't get it back. If you are doing this, I'd encourage you to cut out plenty of footage either side of each highlight just in case you need it later. The other way to extract highlights is to do it non-destructively. This means taking a clip from each video file that contains the highlight while still keeping the original file. The way that you do this is going to be specific to the editing software that you use, but it's probably going to involve importing all of your files into your editing software and completing the process entirely inside your editing software. This is what we do because I like to have more freedom when I'm editing. It's important to mention that when we're looking through our footage, we're not just looking for highlights. We're also looking for other cool things that we could put in the video, anything that can serve as B-roll. This means clips that we filmed deliberately for B-roll, and also things that we captured while filming gameplay that we could use as B-roll. Things like pulls, high fives, all that cool stuff. If you didn't watch video number 5 and you don't know what I mean when I say B-roll, check out the links in the description to go watch that video. Regardless of whether you extract highlights destructively or non-destructively, as you do this you're probably going to want to sort your clips as well. We sort our clips into 5 categories: A, B, and C highlights, pulls, and miscellaneous clips. Those 3 highlight categories, A, B, and C, are basically just varying levels of hype. So our A highlights category contains our most impressive highlights, our B highlights category is stuff that's still cool, but not quite cool enough to be an A, and our C highlights category is everything else. I like to separate our clips in this way because it helps me more easily find different clips, and it makes it easier for me to edit the video the way that I want to. The pulls category is self-explanatory. It contains footage of people pulling. I like to have these clips separate because the pull is what starts the game and starts each point, and it often looks visually different to the rest of the footage in the video, so it serves a different purpose in the edit. Putting them in their own folder means that I have them on hand when I want them. The last category, miscellaneous, has everything else that's not highlights and not pulls. This means that all of your B-roll will be in this folder: high fives, spirit circles, spirit games, team cheers, and all that other good stuff. Like with footage of pulls, these clips serve a very different purpose in the video, so I like to have them separate. Once we've extracted and sorted all of our clips, it's time to start the fun part, actually editing the video. This is where you can really be creative and where all of your hard work up until this point comes together. In the last video, we talked about how our highlight videos are basically music videos and how the music drives the video. This means that while I'm editing, I'm constantly trying to pick the right clip that matches the song at that point in time. As well as picking the right clips, there are a few other things that we can do. The first thing that we can do to match the video to the song is to make cuts on the beat. This is a great way to make it feel like the video and the music fit together. Having said that, you want to be careful you don't do this too much. If your cuts between clips are predictably occurring rhythmically all the time, it can get a little monotonous and a little boring. That brings me to the next thing that I want to talk about, which is pacing. Like I mentioned in the previous video, when editing I'll try and match the energy of the video to the energy of the song. One way that we can do that is with the clips that we choose, but another way we can do that is through pacing. What I mean by pacing is essentially how long each clip lasts for. By putting in quicker clips and cutting frequently between clips, we can make each video section seem more intense than a section of video with longer clips and less frequent cuts. Another thing we can do to get the music and the video gelling together is to make certain actions happen at certain points of the song. This is something that I do a lot, maybe a little too much if I'm being brutally honest with myself. But in my videos I'll often edit such that, for example, a block happens right on the first beat of the drop, or the video cuts into slow motion in time with the song. There are a lot of little things like that we can do to make the video feel like it fits with the song, so I'd encourage you to play around and see what works. One other thing that I'd like to mention while we're talking about editing is that throughout a highlight video we get a series of quick little setups and payoffs, and if we don't have both the setup and the payoff, things don't feel quite right. Let's say we have a highlight of someone making a layout catch. In this case, the setup could be the throw that they had to lay out for, or it could be them running and locking eyes with the disc, or it could be when they leave their feet. It depends on when the clip starts. The payoff is them laying out and making that catch. If we don't have both the setup and the payoff, it doesn't really make sense. If we start the clip after they've already caught the disc, nothing makes sense. And if we show the start of the clip and start building anticipation to that huge layout, but we cut away before they make the catch, it is really unsatisfying. I bring this up because I've seen Ultimate Frisbee videos that have been edited like this. I've seen clips of throws that cut away before the receiver makes the catch, and clips of people running up for pulls where the clip ends before the pull is released. Another less obvious example is if someone makes a play and gets a D, but they don't heed the saged, oft-repeated wisdom that says, catch your Ds. The disc is still floating in the air and the offender might still have a chance to make a catch, but the clip ends and we never know whether they kept the disc alive or not. Filmmaking is a creative process, and of course that means that there may be times where you want to deliberately do this, but in my opinion the highlight videos are a lot better when they contain both the setup and the payoff. The other thing to be aware of while you're editing is that you will be watching bits of your video multiple times. Because of this, you'll start to get familiar with your video, what clip comes next, when the cuts happen, things like that. This can create a situation where the video appears faster to our audience than it does to us, because we're so familiar with it. If there are multiple clips that appear in quick succession, they can appear to go by quickly the first time we see them, but after we've seen that sequence a few times we start to get more familiar with it and we start to notice more about each clip. This is worth bearing in mind that the video might appear faster to our audience, most of whom will only watch this video once, than it does to us when we've spent hours watching and re-watching it while we edit. As well as making our highlight videos fun and entertaining to watch, it's also important to make them equitable. If you remember in the last video we talked about the audience for our highlight videos, and a large portion of our audience for each video will be Ultimate Frisbee players who played in the event that you filmed. They're watching your video to see clips of themselves or see clips from their team, so it's important to make sure that there are some clips in there for everyone. This means ensuring that there are some clips from each team in the video. If it's a mixed event, that also means ensuring that the video is balanced from a gender perspective. This can be hard. Particularly if you're filming a big tournament with lots of teams, it can be hard to make sure that there are enough clips from each team in the video. What can also happen, particularly if you're filming a tournament with a wide range of skill levels, is that you end up with more highlight clips from some teams, often the more skilled teams, than other teams. This also happens within a team. If there are a few key players on a less experienced team, sometimes you can be in a situation where you have lots of clips from those players and less from the rest of the team. If I'm in a situation where making an equitable video is tricky, my approach is to try and make the video feel equitable rather than getting caught up in having the exact right number of clips from each team. In certain situations, making a perfectly equitable video can result in a video that feels a little artificial or even sometimes a little patronizing. If we see a clip of a massive full extension layout from Team A, followed by a huge sky over the top of 3 defenders from Team B, and then we see Team C completing a pass and scoring, then it can feel like we only put that last Team C clip in so that there was a clip from Team C in the video. That definitely is not an excuse to not include Team C in the video though. They were there at the tournament and they deserve to be in that video. There are 2 ways that you can approach equity while you're in the midst of editing a video. You can count clips from each team as you go and make sure that the video is balanced while you edit it, or you can do what I do, which is to edit a first pass of the video without paying any attention to equity, and then go back and swap out clips to ensure that the video is equitable. I prefer to do things this way because I find it means that I can focus on being creative first off, and then focus on refining the video later. To help you out with ensuring that your videos are equitable, in the additional resources link in the description you'll find a coverage checker spreadsheet. I use this to tally up how many clips there are from each team, and it spits out some statistics which tell me how each team is featured in the video. After we've cut all of our clips together in an order that we're happy with, and we've checked that our edit is reasonably equitable, it's time to apply any necessary color effects. Do you remember way back in video 3 of this series where we talked about the different camera settings that influence the color and brightness of our footage? If you don't, or if you need a refresher, there's a link in the description. Well, now is the time where we do our best to fix up everything that didn't go quite right. You might look through all of your footage and find that everything is perfectly well lit and that the colors all look right. If that's the case, great. In my experience, that basically never happens. Particularly if you're filming outdoors, the sun might go behind a cloud, or you might pan over to a darker area of the field, or something else might happen that means that there are some bits of your footage that are brighter than others. Now is the time to go through and keyframe your footage brightness settings to try and counteract that and keep things well lit. If you're shooting with your camera settings set to auto white balance like I do, you might also have some clips that don't quite have the right white balance. If that's the case, now is the time to go in and correct those as well. Back in video 3, we talked about the 2 ways that we can configure the color settings of our camera. We can either set up the camera to capture good colors out of the box, or we can dial back our camera's color effects and apply those later while we're editing. If you chose the latter, right now you probably have some footage that is well exposed because we just fixed that, but washed out and dull. Now is the time to apply whatever color settings and effects are needed to give the footage the look that you want. Even if you set up your camera to capture good colors out of the box, there might still be some adjustments that you want to apply to really make your footage pop. Once you've edited the video together, made sure it's equitable, and applied any necessary color corrections or effects, the only thing left to do is to click that magical export button, upload the video to whichever corner of the internet you call home, and relax. Because this is probably the end of a mountain of work that you've put into this highlight video. That might sound like it's the end of the series, but don't go just yet. There's still one more video in this course. As always, remember to check out the description for links to all the other videos, all the additional resources, and any addendums to this video. I'll see you in the next and final video where we wrap up and review everything that we've talked about over the past 7 videos.